This is the BrawlerGen gamepad from one of my favorite companies, Retrofighters. Now, it is a wired controller, but I got it for a very specific reason because it does something that I haven't seen another controller do. Now, I wouldn't typically get a wired controller because I'm just not a big fan of wires, and if I'm going to use a wired controller, I'd rather just use the OEM product. But this controller is pretty interesting because it works for both the Sega Genesis, or Mega Drive if you're not from North America, and the Sega Saturn. I like having the option of a D-pad and a joystick on the same controller, and some of you might be saying blasphemy for a joystick on the Sega Genesis, and I would tend to agree because there's not a lot of games where a joystick really adds anything to. But for the Sega Saturn, and because this is compatible with both the Saturn and the Genesis, there are a lot of games that benefit from the joystick. If you recall, the Sega Saturn did have a joystick controller. It was that big circular guy that was just kind of unwieldy and awkward to hold. But there are some games that work very well with the joystick on the Saturn. So it's a classic feeling controller that's compatible with both, but it also is modern enough that it's comfortable to hold. Now, I wish they did have a wireless offering of this same controller, but as far as I know, they do not. You might be asking, how is it compatible with the Saturn and the Genesis when they're two different controller ports? Well, both of them are on the same wire. It just kind of splits off. Pretty ingenious. I'm kind of surprised there aren't more offerings like this where there's some compatibility between the Saturn and the Genesis, because if you think about it, the Master System is also compatible with Genesis controllers, so by having it compatible with the Saturn, you have a controller that's compatible with 3 generations of Sega consoles. And to be honest, with Retrofighters' recent Dreamcast controller, the 6-button here, they're kind of showing that they could hypothetically make a controller that could work for all of Sega systems. But for now, this is the best offering that Retrofighters has for the Genesis and Saturn. And you know what? It's not bad.